The desperate call, the stars hung silent over the dying world. Broken mountains pierced the sky like jagged teeth, and the wind carried the scent of ash across the barren plains. In the ruins of an ancient temple, deep beneath the ground, a young, alien girl sat alone, her silver hair tangled and her bright violet eyes full of fear. She was the last of her kind, still unclaimed by the darkness spreading across her planet. Her people had sealed themselves away, too afraid to fight, too proud to ask for help. But she was different. She had dared to hope. She had dared to reach beyond her own dying world. In her hands, she held a small, glowing crystal. The ancient device pulsed softly against her palm. It had one purpose, to send a message through the stars, but not to her own kind. No, this crystal was tuned to a different kind of mind. A human mind. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks, and spoke into the crystal. "Please," she whispered. "Please come inside of me. Not my body. My spirit. My mind. I need you." The crystal shimmered, and the message raced out into the universe, faster than light, faster than thought itself. Far across the stars, on a small, lonely space station orbiting a forgotten moon, a young human explorer stirred in his sleep. His name was Elias, and he was used to strange dreams, but nothing had ever felt like this. He saw flashes of silver light, heard a voice, soft and desperate, calling him. He felt a pull inside his chest, like a hand reaching across the stars, touching his heart directly. He woke with a start, his body covered in cold sweat. "What was that?" he muttered to himself. The station's AI chirped softly. "Unidentified psychic transmission detected," it said. "Origin, unknown world." Elias sat up, his mind racing. Psychic transmissions were rare, and a direct emotional call, unheard of. Without thinking, he pulled up the star map. The signal had left a faint trail. Like a burning thread weaving through the blackness, it pointed to a small dying planet marked as unsuitable for colonization. "Unsuitable for colonization," he whispered, staring at the map. "But not unsuitable for saving." He had no orders to leave, no mission to guide him. But something inside him, something stronger than duty, told him he had to go. The call was not a command, it was a plea. And he could not ignore it. He programmed the small scout ship, setting course for the broken world. As the engines rumbled to life, he looked out the window one last time, at the peaceful stars that had been his only company for so long. "Hang on," he said softly. "I'm coming." Back on the dying planet, the alien girl, her name was Sayla, felt the faintest whisper of hope stir in her heart. She didn't know if the message had been heard. She didn't know if anyone would answer. But she had felt something. A presence. A warmth. And for the first time in many lonely cycles, she smiled. But deep in the shadows of the ruined city, other eyes were watching. Ancient machines, corrupted by darkness, stirred to life. Hunters built to destroy anything that defied the decay began to track the signal. The call had been made. The hunt had begun. And the stars, silent witnesses to 1,000 forgotten wars, watched as fate once again moved unseen through the galaxy. Far above, Elias's ship entered the jump gate, vanishing into a stream of starlight. He did not know what waited for him. He did not know that the choice he made tonight would change not just his life, but the fate of 2 dying worlds. But he would soon find out. And Sayla would soon learn that. Sometimes hope does not come with armies or heroes. Sometimes hope comes in the form of a lone human, answering a call whispered through the darkness. The forbidden bond, the small scout ship drifted through the thick clouds of the dying world. Heavy storms raged across the cracked surface below, lightning flashing against the dark skies. Elias tightened his grip on the controls, his heart beating faster with every passing moment. He had faced dangerous missions before, but never had he felt such a deep pull, a force stronger than fear, guiding him toward the surface. The beacon from the psychic transmission pulsed steadily on his screen, leading him toward a ruined city buried under dust and time. As the ship landed with a soft thud, Elias grabbed his gear and stepped out into the bitter wind. Ash swirled around him, coating everything in a dull gray. The world felt abandoned, forgotten. But somewhere out there, he knew, someone was waiting for him. He moved carefully through the ruins, passing broken statues and shattered towers. Strange machines, long dead, lay scattered across the streets, like fallen giants. The air was thick with silence. Then he felt it, a faint whisper in his mind, a soft voice calling him forward. He followed it, deeper into the ruins, until he reached the entrance of an old temple, half buried under stone and vines. Inside, the shadows pressed close. The only light came from the faint blue glow of a crystal held by a figure kneeling at the altar. It was her, Sayila. She looked up as he entered, her violet eyes wide with shock and something else, something like recognition. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The bond between them pulsed in the air like a living thing, connecting them in ways neither truly understood. Then Sayila rose slowly, her movements graceful but cautious. "You heard me," she said, her voice trembling. Elias nodded. "I heard you." She stepped closer, her silver hair falling around her shoulders like a river of light. She was even more beautiful than he had imagined, but there was sadness in her eyes, a deep and terrible sadness that made his chest ache. "You are human," she said, as if confirming it to herself. "And you are the one who called," Elias replied gently. For a moment, a fragile hope flickered between them, but it was shattered by the sudden shriek of alarms deep within the temple walls. Sayla's face paled. "They know," she whispered. "They know you are here." "Who?" Elias asked, already moving toward her. "The Guardians," she said. "Ancient machines, created to protect my people and destroy anything they see as a threat." As if to answer her words, the ground shook violently. Massive doors at the far end of the temple slammed open and hulking figures stepped into the hall. Metal bodies gleamed in the dim light, their eyes burning with red fire. Elias drew his sidearm instinctively, but Sayila grabbed his arm. "You cannot fight them," she said urgently. "Not alone." "Then what do we do?" he asked. She looked at him, her eyes shining with fierce determination. "You must come inside of me," she said, her voice trembling. Elias froze, confused. "Not your body," she said, quickly, sensing his fear. "Your mind, your spirit. You must connect with me fully. Only then can we survive." The Guardians marched closer, their heavy footsteps shaking the floor. Elias had no time to think. He trusted her. He trusted the bond he felt pulling him toward her. He dropped his weapon and reached out, taking her hands in his. Immediately, a surge of energy rushed through him. His vision blurred, the temple around him fading into a sea of silver light. He felt her mind touch his, soft, strong, full of sorrow and hope. Their spirits merged, becoming one, and the world exploded. A blast of pure energy erupted from them, sending the Guardians crashing backward, their metal bodies smoking and broken. The temple shuddered under the force of the bond they had created. When the light faded, Elias and Sayila collapsed together, gasping for breath. They had done it. They had survived. But the connection they had formed was something forbidden, something ancient, something powerful enough to terrify entire empires. And now, there was no going back. Outside the temple, in the far reaches of the galaxy, the ancient rulers of Sayla's people stirred from their slumber. They had felt it. The forbidden bond had been awakened, and they would do anything to destroy it. Secrets beneath the skin, the old temple lay in ruins around them. Broken stones and twisted metal filled the air with dust, but in the middle of it all, Sayila and Elias sat close, their breathing shallow, their hands still locked together. For a few precious moments, the world outside seemed to disappear. There was only the warmth of the bond between them, pulsing softly like a heartbeat shared. Then reality came crashing back. Sayila pulled away first, her body trembling. She wrapped her arms around herself as if suddenly cold. "You should not have done it," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Elias frowned. "You asked me to." "I did," she said, her violet eyes dark with fear. "But I did not know it would be this strong." Elias sat back against a broken pillar, trying to catch his breath. "What happened?" Sayla looked at him, her face pale under the silver glow of her skin. "We are bonded now," she said. "Not by force, not by ceremony, but by something older than both our worlds." Elias tried to understand. "What does it mean?" She touched her chest, gently, her fingers trembling. "It means my body is no longer just mine. It carries a part of you now. And your body carries a part of me." Elias stared at her, stunned. "How?" he asked. She gave a bitter smile. "My people were created long ago, shaped by an ancient race that believed in purity above all. They made us powerful, but they made us fragile too. We were never meant to bond with outsiders, never meant to mix blood or spirit with anything less than perfect." Her voice broke and she turned away. "But perfection is a lie," she said. "And now something inside me is changing." Elias moved closer. "What do you mean?" Sayla took a deep breath, her hands clenching into fists. "When you connected with me," she said, "you awakened something hidden deep within my body, something my people tried to bury long ago." She lifted her hand. Soft lines of light traced patterns across, her skin glowing faintly. The symbols were ancient, pulsing gently like living things. "What is that?" Elias asked, awe and fear mixing in his voice. "The old power," she said. "The power to reshape life itself. It was locked away, until you touched my spirit." Outside, the winds howled louder as if the world itself sensed the change. Elias looked at her carefully. "Is it dangerous?" She smiled sadly. "To them? Yes. Very." He hesitated. "And to me?" For a long time she said nothing. Then she whispered, "I don't know." Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the ground. The floor beneath them cracked, and dust rained down from the ceiling. Sayla jumped to her feet. "They are coming," she said urgently. The Guardians were just the beginning. Elias rose too, pulling a small scanner from his belt. The screen flickered with warnings. Dozens of life forms approaching fast. "We have to move," he said, but Sayla shook her head. "If we run, they will hunt us forever. If we hide, they will find us. There is only one way." Elias narrowed his eyes. "What way?" Sayla reached out and touched the center of his chest over his heart. "We must complete the bond," she said softly. "Not just spirit to spirit, but soul to soul." Elias swallowed hard. "What will happen if we do?" Sayla's hand trembled against his chest. "We will become something new," she said. "Something they fear more than death." The ground shook again, stronger this time. Cracks raced across the walls of the temple. Distant roars filled the air. There was no more time. Elias looked into her eyes filled with fear, with hope, with a strength that refused to die. "Then let's do it," he said. Sayla nodded once, a tear slipping down her cheek. They stood together in the center of the broken temple, hands joined, hearts pounding. And as the storm closed around them, they prepared to unleash a force the galaxy had not seen in thousands of years. A force hidden beneath the skin, a force that would change everything. The king's decree far away, across the cold stars and dying worlds, deep within the shining towers of the last alien stronghold, the king sat on his black throne. The hall around him was vast and empty, filled only with the whispers of frightened advisors and trembling guards. The ancient crystals that lined the walls pulsed with dark red light, a sure sign that the forbidden bond had been awakened. The king's long fingers tapped against the arm of his throne. His face, once proud and calm, was now twisted with fury. "She has broken the sacred laws," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "She has invited corruption into our blood." None dared to meet his eyes. An old counselor stepped forward, bowing low. "Your Majesty, it is only one bond. Perhaps it will die with her." The king's laugh was a cold, hollow sound. "No," he said. "A single spark can burn a forest to ash. If we allow her to live, she will become the flame that consumes us all." He stood, the black and gold of his royal robes falling around him like a storm cloud. "Send the decree," he commanded. "Let it be known across every system. The girl is a traitor. The human is an enemy of the crown. They are to be hunted without mercy." His generals bowed low. Already their minds turned toward war, toward weapons, armies, assassins. But the king was not finished. "Find the watchers," he said. "Release the binders." The room went silent. Even the bravest warriors paled at his words. The watchers were ancient hunters, creatures of mind and flesh, built to destroy anything that threatened the old ways. The binders were worse. Tools that could tear spirit from body, crushing the will of even the strongest soul. "It must be done," the king said, his eyes burning like dying suns, "for the survival of our kind." As the king's decree spread across the stars, Saela and Elias stood together in the ruins of the temple, unaware that the galaxy itself had turned against them. They had completed the soul bond, but at a cost. Saela could feel it, a weight deep inside her, a new life stirring, not yet born but already burning brightly in the threads of fate. She touched her stomach lightly, feeling the pulse of energy there. Elias watched her carefully. He had seen the light move through her, seen the symbols on her skin shift and change. He knew something incredible had happened, something dangerous. "What now?" he asked. Selah lifted her head, her violet eyes fierce. "Now," she said, "we run." They fled the temple before the first of the king's assassins arrived. They crossed desolate plains, hid in shattered forests where no light touched the ground, and slept under the ruins of cities swallowed by sand. But always, the hunters followed. Strange machines, half alive, half dead, tracked their every step. Whispers filled the night, voices promising mercy in one breath and death in the next. Sometimes Selah would wake in the dark, gasping for breath, her mind filled with visions of chains made of light, of her soul being torn apart. The bond protected them, but it was also a beacon, and every passing day the noose tightened. One evening, as twin moons rose over the broken land, Elias and Saela found shelter in a collapsed observatory, its great telescope pointed forever at a shattered sky. There, under the broken dome, they talked. "Why do they fear you so much?" Elias asked. Saela hesitated, then said, "Because I carry the future, a future they cannot control." She looked at him, her hand brushing against his. "I carry a life inside me," she said quietly. "Something never seen before. A child of both worlds, a bridge between human and alien." Elias's breath caught in his throat. "They will never allow it," he said. "Then we must make them see," she answered. "We must survive long enough to show the galaxy what is possible." Outside, the shadows moved. Hunters drew closer, silent and deadly. Inside, hope and fear battled for space in their hearts. And above, somewhere beyond the clouds, the king prepared his final weapon. He would not just hunt them. He would erase them. He would erase the very idea of them from history. And unless Saela and Elias could find a way to stand against him, everything they had fought for, everything they had bonded for, would be lost. Forever. The awakening. The night was cold and endless. The broken observatory where Saela and Elias hid offered little protection from the wind that howled through the ruins. Every shadow seemed to whisper threats. Every breeze carried the scent of danger. Elias sat close to the dying fire, sharpening a blade he had found among the rubble. His eyes stayed on Saela, who stood near the broken wall, staring at the stars through the shattered dome above. She had not spoken much since they escaped the temple. Something had changed inside her. He could feel it. Sayla touched her stomach, lightly, feeling the energy growing within. It was more than life, it was power, ancient, untamed, and fierce. It flowed through her veins like a second heartbeat. Faster, stronger, the bond she shared with Elias had awakened something deep inside her. Something her ancestors had feared. Something her enemies would kill to destroy. She closed her eyes and let the energy rise. Visions flooded her mind and flashes of the future. She saw great cities rising from ruins. She saw humans and aliens standing side by side, no longer enemies. She saw herself standing in the heart of a burning palace, her voice shaking the very stars. But she also saw blood. She saw betrayal. She saw the king standing over a field of ashes, his sword dripping with the lives he had stolen. Her hands clenched into fists. She would not allow it. Behind her, Elias rose and walked to her side. "You are stronger," he said quietly. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "But strength alone will not save us," she said finally. "We need allies." Elias thought for a moment. "Where?" "There is a place," she said. "A place my people abandoned long ago, deep beneath the mountains. A place where the old blood still remembers what we once were." Hope flickered in his chest. "Then we go there." But reaching it would not be easy. Already, the king's hunters moved closer. The Watchers, creatures of shadow and blade, had picked up their trail. The Binders, weapons designed to tear spirit from flesh, hunted them from the skies. The journey to the mountains would be a race against death. They left the observatory before dawn, slipping through the ruins like ghosts. Sayla used her growing powers to shield them from sight, bending light and sound around them. But the effort drained her quickly. By midday, they stumbled into an ancient forest, the trees twisted into unnatural shapes, the ground thick with mist. It was there the hunters struck. Without warning, black shapes leapt from the mist, their blades flashing in the pale light. Elias fired his blaster, each shot burning holes through the attackers. Sayla moved with impossible speed, her body glowing faintly, her hands weaving patterns in the air that shattered weapons and threw enemies back. But there were too many. A binder descended from the sky, its long arms reaching for Sayla, its eyes glowing with the light of stolen souls. Elias shouted her name and fired again and again, but the binder was too fast. It caught Sayla in its grasp, lifting her into the air. She screamed, and the sound tore through the forest like a storm. The bond between them flared to life. Without thinking, Elias dropped his weapon and reached out, his mind slamming into hers with all the force of his fear, his rage, his love. A pulse of energy exploded from Sayela's body, blinding and pure. The binder shrieked and disintegrated into ash. The other hunters fled, their courage broken. Sayla fell into Elias's arms, her body trembling but alive. They collapsed together onto the forest floor, the mist swirling around them like a living thing. For a long time, they said nothing. Then Sayla lifted her head, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "I felt you," she whispered. "I'm here," Elias said, his voice shaking. She smiled, a smile filled with sorrow and hope. "We are not two anymore," she said. "We are one." The awakening was complete. They were no longer just human and alien. They were something new. Something stronger. Something the galaxy had never seen before. And the king, no matter how many hunters he sent, no matter how many weapons he unleashed, would never be able to destroy them now. The real war had just begun. The betrayal. The mountains rose, before them like ancient giants, their peaks hidden by swirling black clouds. Somewhere deep within, hidden by stone and forgotten by time, lay the place Sayla spoke of, the last refuge of the old blood. Elias and Sayla moved carefully through the narrow paths, their every step watched by unseen eyes. The world felt heavier here, the very air thick with old memories and silent warnings. They were close to safety, but danger still hunted them. Hidden among the stones, a pair of golden eyes tracked their every move, unseen, silent, patient. Betrayal was already creeping toward them, wearing the face of someone they trusted. After the battle in the misty forest, Elias and Sayla had found others like them, a small band of outcasts, rebels, and survivors who hated the king and his tyranny. They had promised safety, they had promised loyalty, but promises meant little in a galaxy ruled by fear. One among the rebels was a woman named Kira. She wore the scars of old battles and spoke words filled with fire. Sayla had trusted her, had believed in her strength. But Kira's heart was poisoned by something older than hatred. She feared the bond between human and alien. She feared what it meant for the future, and in her fear, she chose to betray them. As Elias and Sayla reached a small cave near the mountain's base, Kira watched from the shadows. In her hand, she held a beacon, a tiny device already pulsing with light, sending a silent message into the skies above. The king's hunters would be here soon. Inside the cave, Sayla collapsed against the cold stone wall, her strength nearly gone. Elias knelt beside her, his face tight with worry. "Rest," he said. "I will watch over you." She smiled weakly. "You always do." Outside, the wind howled louder. The first signs of the hunter's arrival whispered through the air. The smell of burning metal, the distant thrum of engines. Elias stood and moved to the cave entrance, scanning the horizon. He did not see Kira slip inside behind him. It was Sayla who saw her first, the faint glow of the beacon in her hand. Her heart froze. "Elias," she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. He turned just in time to see Kira raising a weapon, its barrel aimed straight at Sayla's heart. Everything slowed. Elias moved without thinking, throwing himself between them as the weapon fired. The blast hit him in the side, knocking him to the ground. Sayla screamed, a sound of pure rage and sorrow, and the bond between them flared so brightly that the very stones trembled. Kira staggered back, her face pale with shock. She had underestimated them. Sayla rose slowly, her body glowing with a light that seemed pulled from the very stars themselves. "You betrayed us," she said, her voice trembling with fury. Kira dropped the weapon, falling to her knees. "I was afraid," she sobbed. "Your child, your bond, it will destroy everything we know." Sayla shook her head. "No," she said. "It will save everything we lost." With a wave of her hand, Sayla sent Kira flying backward, the energy of the bond wrapping around her like chains. Kira lay still, unconscious, but alive. Elias groaned from the floor. Sayla rushed to his side, tears streaming down her face. "Stay with me," she begged, pressing her hands against the wound. Elias smiled weakly. "I'm not going anywhere." The sound of engines grew louder. The hunters had arrived. There was no more time for grief or anger, only survival. Sayla helped Elias to his feet. Together, they stumbled deeper into the cave, moving toward the ancient gate hidden beneath the mountain. Behind them, the sky turned black with the king's ships. Ahead of them, the future waited, uncertain, terrifying, but still alive. They had been betrayed. They had been hunted. But they were not broken. Not yet. Rebirth of a new world. The ancient gate deep inside the mountain stood silent, hidden for thousands of years. Covered in dust, half buried by rock, it pulsed with a soft blue light, sensing the presence of something it had long awaited. Sayla and Elias stumbled toward it, every step a battle against pain and exhaustion. Behind them, the sky thundered with the roar of approaching ships. The king's hunters were closing in. They had no more time to run. Sayla pressed her hand against the center of the gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the old stones shivered, and the gate opened with a deep sigh, revealing a passage filled with glowing light. "Inside," she said, her voice shaking. Elias nodded, leaning heavily on her for support. Together, they crossed into the unknown. The passage led them into a vast chamber, larger than any place Sayla had ever seen. The walls shimmered with ancient symbols, telling the story of a forgotten time when bonds between worlds had been celebrated, not feared. In the center of the chamber stood a massive crystal, glowing with pure life energy. Sayela could feel it, calling to her. She helped Elias sit against a stone pillar, then stepped forward alone. "What is this place?" Elias asked, his voice weak. "It is the heart of the old world," Sayela said softly. "It remembers who we were and what we can become." She placed her hands on the crystal. Immediately, the bond between her and Elias flared to life, stronger than ever before. The walls of the chamber lit up, showing visions of a future where humans and aliens lived as one, where fear had no place, where hope was stronger than hate. Outside, the hunters reached the mountain entrance. They fired weapons at the stone walls, blasting rocks into dust. They would be inside within minutes. Inside the chamber, Sayela closed her eyes and poured all her strength into the crystal. Her hope, her fear, her love. The crystal answered. A wave of energy exploded outward, washing through the mountain, through the planet, through the stars. The king's ships froze in the sky, their engines dead, weapons turned to dust. Hunters dropped their blades and shields, staring around in confusion and fear. And the king, sitting far away on his black throne, felt the bond break the chains of his control. His face twisted in rage as he realized the truth he had lost, not to an army, not to a weapon, but to two hearts bound together by hope. In the glowing chamber, Sayela collapsed to her knees, her strength nearly gone. Elias crawled to her side, pulling her into his arms. "You did it," he whispered. She smiled, her head resting against his chest. "We did it." Outside the mountain, the world began to change. The skies cleared. The plants, long dead, started to grow again. Streams of water broke through the dry ground, bringing life back to the broken lands. Across the galaxy, those who had lived in fear for generations felt something stir inside them. Something ancient, something new. Hope. The king's rule was broken. A new age had begun, and at the center of it all stood a young alien girl and a human, their bond rewriting the future one heartbeat at a time. As the first light of a new dawn touched the mountain peaks, Sayela felt a soft flutter of life inside her. A child. A bridge between two worlds. The true heir to the new galaxy. And in that moment she knew, no matter how dark the past had been, the future was full of stars. They had survived. They had won. And now, together, they would build a world where no one would ever have to fight alone again.